The Fallout world, where the strongest reign supreme, the smartest hoard supplies, and the rest have an utter lack of self-awareness. But every world has its secrets it wants to hide. I had to claw my way through the most hideous and dangerous realms known to man to show you these secrets. And it led me to reddit.com. I got from Reddit. And in my realm deep travels, I found this Fallout Iceberg made by this guy, a true local gamer. I also want to thank Space Guy Online for making the first Fallout Iceberg. He is also a true local gamer. I will be using this Vault Boy to indicate how well I understand and how well I can explain the subject matter. 5 Vault Boy heads mean I know 100% and can easily explain the subject matter. And 1 means I have no idea what I'm talking about. Buckle up, this is not your grandma's garage Wario apparition iceberg.
You gotta be cuckoo crazy!
This is the Fallout Iceberg.
Fallout 4 Pip-boy games.
In Fallout 4, the player can encounter holotapes that contain different video games that you can play. These games are based on real-life video games that were popular in the 70s and 80s. These games are Atomic Command, which is based on Missile Command, Grognak and the Rupee Ruins, which is based on The Bard's Tale, Pitfall, which is based on Pitfall, Red Menace, which is based on Donkey Kong, Zia Invaders, which is based on Space Invaders, and Automatron, which is based on Robotron 2084.
Carrying gold in Elijah's head.
In Fallout New Vegas, there is a glitch where if you kill Father Elijah and carry him to the blue force field door, you can dump all of the 37 gold bars into his body, run through the god-awful hologram maze, and get to the elevator room. You can take all of the gold bars from his body or head and get out super rich. Even though this completely destroys the entire point of this DLC of letting go. But by god, people would go to extreme lengths just to get that sweet gold.
Day out money bad ending.
In Fallout New Vegas Dead Money DLC, it's possible to get locked in the vault and get a game over. This happens if you read Sinclair's personal accounts. This was a trap for Dean Domino because Sinclair knew he wanted to break into the vault and take all the treasure that are inside. The ending basically calls the player a big fat idiot for letting the entire main plot point and the lesson of the DLC fly over their head. The scary part, when the player character dies, the casino makes a new hologram modeled after them. You are made into a ghost and are forever damned to walk in this god-awful DLC.
Gorillas in the Institute.
In Fallout 4, if the player character unlocked access to the Institute and went to the Bioscience Center, he can meet actual gorillas. Well, not really, these are fully fledged synth gorillas. Why would the Institute need synth gorillas? They don't. This is a side project time waster made by the bioscientists. Because they were bored, that's the whole shtick. This man made them. What is wrong with this man?
Montana Bunker.
In Fallout 3, there is a character named Owen Lyons. He is the elder of the Brotherhood chapter in the Capital Wasteland. While eating with his knights and paladins, he will speak and quote the words of Elder Patroclus, who is the head of the Montana Bunker. The problem? This never happens. Due to a bug, Lyons never says anything about Patroclus or the Montana Bunker. The speech is referenced in the game files, but it's impossible for Lyons to say it unless it's modded.
Looking yourself in the ants.
In Fallout 4, the player character can encounter a submarine called the Yangtze, and inside there is a ghoul named Captain Zhao. He is depressed. Talking to him will give you a quest called Here There Be Monsters. In one part of the quest, the player is tasked to insert the damping coil into the submarine, followed by the warhead. But if the player has a disregard to the safety protocols and does it in the reverse order, the entire ship explodes, nuking Zhao and himself in the process.
J'ai inquiet Buren un Tranquility Lane.
In Fallout 3, if you follow the main quest, you will end up in Vault 112. It's full of these pods that put you in a comatose state, and your mind is transported into a computer-generated location called Tranquility Lane. Inside, there's a girl named Bay, who is actually a sick, poor man named Braun. Braun is the overseer of Vault 112 and the self-proclaimed god of Tranquility Lane. He does what he pleases and then memory wipes everybody. If the player character tries to harm Braun, Braun will immediately retaliate and kill you on the spot. Can we talk that this senile old man gets his kicks cosplaying as a little girl in a make-believe land? Truly, he understands something that we normal people do not.
200 endings.
This is a line from the infamous Todd Howard. Todd Howard is the executive producer and game director of Bethesda Softworks, and he is known for his little lies. Todd claimed in an OXM podcast interview that Fallout 3 will have over 200 endings. And when the game came out, we got like 3-ish endings. Why is that? It is because Todd is known as a serial liar who can't keep his mouth checked. The 200 ending line is in fact a lie, and I have proof.
But it does deserve some description.
Okay,
So,
please.
Yeah, you're like 200 endings. That's a lie of some kind.
Nonsense.
So
You're a mean one, Mr. Howard.
Fallout 76 was developed by Bethesda.
While not claimed by Bethesda, there have been a lot of speculation that 76 was developed by a B team, considering the horrendous launch and the countless bugs. The game was worked heavily by Bethesda Game Studios Austin, and this made people think if they were the only ones working on it, while the rest of the big boys were working on Starfield. I think it's completely possible that this happened.
Fallout 1 bad ending.
In Fallout 1, the player is tasked to retrieve a water chip to keep the water in his vault, Vault 13, clean and drinkable. He is given 500 days to do this and is under strict command to not tell anyone about Vault 13's location. Failure to do any of these gives you a bad ending, and it's quite gruesome. The ending specifically happens if the lieutenant manages to torture the vault's location out of you. You decide to join the Unity and give the location of the vault to the master.
Join. Die. Join. Die.
You do God knows what for 500 days, probably picking daisies or trying to wahoo one of the locals. The timer hits 0 and the game over screen plays.
Obsidian's Metacritic bonus.
During the development of Fallout New Vegas, Bethesda struck a deal with Obsidian. If they manage to develop the game in 18 months and get a Metacritic score of 85 or higher, everybody will get a nice bonus. Sounds good and fair, right? Well, check this out. This one screenshot gives many a Fallout New Vegas fan nightmares till this very day. Obsidian did not get their bonus, and the relationship between Bethesda and Obsidian became stained.
Zetans caused the Great War.
In the Fallout 3 DLC Mothership Zeta, the player can find many holotapes called Alien Captive Record Logs. These are about the people that the aliens managed to capture and maybe probe. One of these holotapes is holotape number 17, found in the Cryolab section. If you listen to the tape, you can hear the spastic screeching of a soon-to-be genocidal Xeno. If you enable subtitles, you can read that this is a conversation between an alien and a captured high-ranking military officer that has the nuke launch codes. Were the aliens trying to get the launch codes? We actually don't know. The officer claimed that they wanted the codes, but that's anyone's guess.
Operación Anchoraje is propaganda.
In the Fallout universe, there was a war between the Chinese occupation of Alaska and the Americans called the Battle of Anchorage. The war started in 2066 and lasted about a decade. In Fallout 3, there is a DLC called Operation Anchorage, where the player character meets with the Brotherhood outcasts and goes into a pod to participate in a battle simulation that takes place in Anchorage. The simulation was meant to be used as practice for soldiers who were going to be deployed at Anchorage, but the pods they were going into were not actively life-threatening, unlike the one you go into. The best indication that this is propaganda is that in the end of the DLC, where you fight General Jingwei, you liberate Anchorage from the Chinese and take back American land. This never happened. The American army managed to stop the progression of the Chinese occupation, and That's it. The Chinese are still in Anchorage doing what they were doing, and Americans celebrate this as a victory. Also, fun fact, if you manage to speak check the Chinese General Jingwei into surrender, he will commit seppuku, a Japanese act of self-surrender. Gotta love those wacky Americans.
16 times the detail.
Todd and his lies again. This lie is about the Fallout 76 rendering, where Todd, absolutely without any shred of disloyalty in his voice, tells the misguided and scared crowd in E3 2018,
"We always start with the world, and this time it features all new rendering, lighting, and landscape technology. It allows us to have 16 times the detail and even view distant weather systems across the map."
Those poor people, they have no idea, do they? There is some truth about the detail when Fallout 76 actually works. It does look nicer and cleaner than Fallout 4, but it's hard to call it 16 times better. Bill Calhoun. In Fallout New Vegas, the player character can meet with a unique character that goes by the name of Caesar.
Mark my words, you piece of shit.
Lovely guy. Before becoming the leader of his legion, he was known as Edward Sallow and was part of the Followers of the Apocalypse, a group of people trying to make everybody's life not awful following the bombs. During his times in the Followers, Caesar was sent east to study the tribes that lived there and their dialect. One of the people that came with him was a physician named Bill Calhoun. They met with a Mormon missionary named Joshua Graham, and together they went to Arizona. During their time in Arizona, they were captured by the Blackfoot tribe and held ransom. The Blackfoot tribe was at war with 7 other tribes. Caesar, being the good genuine man that he was, and not doing this because he did not want to die, decided to help the Blackfoots not to be genocide and taught them warfare from books he read. Bill was against this, but at that point Caesar had an entire tribe trained in highly advanced warfare under his command, so he decided to stay quiet. After this, Caesar conquered the neighboring 7 tribes. Caesar sent Bill back to the Followers with a warning not to interfere with him or his legion. Throwing weapons in Fallout 3. The throwing weapon skill does not appear in Fallout 3, unlike the Fallout games that came before it. However, it still appears in the game files, and one NPC class named Enclave Big Guns has this as a tagged skill. The class includes Enclave Armory Master and Enclave Sigma Master. The weapons that were considered throwing weapons in previous games, like grenades, were merged to the explosive skill. The Forecaster is a Psyker. A Psyker is a type of person that seems to possess unexplainable psychic powers. It is possible to be born with these powers, but it's more common to inherit them from outside forces. The methods which one could acquire these fantastic powers are less than healthy to your average adult male. These methods are FEV exposure, radiation exposure, being a brain in a jar like Professor Calvert, or messing with dangerous ancient alien artifacts. Why am I telling you this? Well, in Fallout New Vegas there is this kid that lives in the 188 trading post. This kid is a fortune teller. If the player talks to him, he will tell you encrypted visions of the past, present and future. While cryptic and barely understandable, all are true and did or are going to happen, meaning the forecaster can see the past and the future, and this qualifies him as a psyker. Fun fact, the name comes from the board game Warhammer 40k, where people named psykers can use psionic powers from the warp. I will now stop talking about Warhammer 40k because the entire franchise is an iceberg in it of itself. Tridwin terminal logs are propaganda. These are referring to how great Elder Maxon is and how much of a Chad he is. The terminal logs are written like sweaty fanfiction, as there is a mention that there was a cult who worships Maxon as a god. He also apparently managed to kill a Deathclaw when he was 13. Now, I won't call it impossible, but this is bullshit. Starfleet in Fallout 2. In Fallout 2, while exploring the wasteland, there is a chance to get a special encounter, a crashed spaceship. This is a reference to the Star Trek series. The shuttle is an exact replica of the USS Enterprise. The crash site also has 3 dead bodies, all wearing red shirts, a reference to the fact that red shirts are disposable scum that die in nearly every episode in the series. Camp Willow. In the game guide of Fallout New Vegas, there is a mention of an NCR camp that is just southeast of the fort. It also appears in early map designs of New Vegas. It never appears or is even mentioned in the game. Bison Creek building is Obsidian HQ. In Fallout New Vegas, south of Camp McCarran, there is a building called the Bison Creek building. This entire building is nothing but funny home videos you can watch on TV, such as dead rats die and stink up the entire building, numerous floodings and infestation, and people getting stuck in their offices. This entire building is a nod to the creators of Fallout New Vegas, Obsidian Entertainment, about incidents that happened in their HQ in California. This, however, sounds as though these incidents are normal and happen almost at a daily basis. Is everything alright in there? Fake Vault 13. In Fallout 2, the player can discover a cave system. The cave system was meant to house a vault, however construction on it never finished. In the game, it is known as Fake Vault 13, and the cave is even identical to the Vault 13 cave in Fallout 1. You can learn about this location from Merc in New California, a local opportunist seizing the chance to swindle you, a gullible part of the masses. He will sell you a holodisc for a fair price of $1,000 plus tax, and you, being the buffoon that you are, you pay him. You go there and find out there is absolutely nothing there. Children of Atom are psychers. Children of Atom are members of a hip new religion called Church of the Children of Atom. These guys are idiots that believe that radiation is their god and nuclear warfare is a catalyst for evolution and the creation of life. What a bunch of lunatics who clearly did not take their anti-schizo medication. But as it turns out, they might actually be right. Maybe. It's been shown almost all of them are highly resilient to radiation. Dude, some of them live in the glowing sea like it's nothing. Does this mean they are actually psychers? None of the members showed any sign of psionic powers, but they might actually be a hive mind. What I mean is that if there are enough members believing in something, it exists. If they believe radiation brings life and it's good for them, this might manifest as a psionic shield that keeps them from the harming radiation. Hey, kind of like the orcs from Warhammer.
Stop right there, criminal scum!
But just ghosts. In Fallout New Vegas, there is a high-ranking NCR official named Hanlon, an old and very respected member of the NCR and a hero. Currently, he is the leader of the NCR Rangers. He is also very depressed. If the player talks to him and asks him about the current state of the NCR, he talks about how the current president of the NCR, Kimball, is sending the best and most experienced NCR Rangers to Baja to chase ghosts. Does this mean ghosts exist in the Fallout world? No, it's a figure of speech. Chasing ghosts means chasing something that's not really there or doesn't exist. What Hanlon is trying to say is that what the NCR Rangers doing in Baja is stupid and dumb, and they should just get out there because it doesn't benefit the NCR at all. Like this subject matter, why is it on the Iceberg list? It's clearly a figure of speech. Unless birds in Fallout 4 are Institute spies. In Fallout 4, some NPCs like Deacon will claim that birds are in fact Institute spies set out to monitor the Commonwealth and report any information. There was also a cut terminal that was meant to appear in the Institute. It states where those Institute spy birds are. Considering the Institute made freakishly close gorilla sense, it's not too far-fetched for them to do something similar with birds. Fallout 4 originally wasn't going to have a female protagonist. It's possible Fallout 4 was not going to feature a female protagonist. There is actually some evidence, but it's nothing too major. The female character can use power armor. The female character is a lawyer. She could not use power armor because she did not get training. Power armor can only be used if you were specifically trained for it. If you tried to go in without proper training, you would be stuck and you could not move. Sometimes in dialogue, people might refer to the female player with male pronouns, but this is a bug. It also happens with the male player. The best evidence I have is the Fallout 4 Kotaku leak, where the player character drawing is a male, but this is just concept art and maybe a placeholder. The game does nudge you picking male, as he is the first character you see. I think both male and female were always going to be playable, because Bethesda's RPGs always let you pick one of the two. Interplay's original Fallout 3. Okay, before Bethesda acquired the rights for Fallout and made Fallout 3, there was a different Fallout 3, being made by the original people that worked on Fallout 1 and 2. The project was named Van Buren. Sadly, the game had a lot of publisher problems, implementing gameplay features that the developers did not like or did not intend. This back and forth kept going until the project was cancelled in 2003 due to financial difficulties. There is a playable tech demo that can be found in the No Mutants Allowed website. I can't give this subject matter a deserving narration. I highly recommend checking out Retcon Raider if you are interested in any way about Van Buren and the Fallout that could have been. Links in the description. The Chosen One was canonically a porn star. In Fallout 2, the player can come across a location called the Golden Globes. It's a
questionably legal portrayal of sexual subjects.
Studio run by the Corsican brothers, Sid and Marty. If the player character wants, he can audition to become a
questionably legal portrayal of sexual subjects.
Star, but this requires them to pass a hefty amount of skill checks. These checks are charisma, agility, and endurance. If the player succeeds, he will become a fully fledged
questionably legal portrayal of sexual subjects.
Star. However, this does not mean it is canon, as the later Fallout games don't reference this fact about the Chosen One. But if we consider what Stella, a caravan guard in the Honest Hearts DLC says,
"Town's run by a bunch of crime families. No law to speak of. Make trouble and you wind up buried in Golgotha outside town. The scuzz factor's off the charts. Non-stop whoring and drugs. Couldn't walk down the street without getting asked to star in a porn movie."
The state of New Reno stayed about the same as it was in Fallout 2, and we do have confirmation that the Chosen One did in fact marry a bishop, one of the stronger families in New Reno. It might be possible the Chosen One enjoyed their time as a
questionably legal portrayal of sexual subjects
star and decided to keep the city that way even though he had the power and influence. Horses in New Vegas. In the All Roads Fallout New Vegas prequel comic, there is one panel of an NCR trooper riding a horse, but no horses appear in the game. When asked about this in an email, Chris Avalone calls this panel a mistake, an error, when he noticed it was already too late. The development team also had to cut some of Raul, a companion's, lines because of his mention to horses. There is some debate over the legitimacy of this email, as the only source for it I could find was in the Fallout wiki. However, the user who emailed Chris is a well-respected community member in the wiki, and Chris is well known for his hatred of anything resembling a living, breathing animal. More on that later. It's possible they were meant to be horses, but Chris decided to remove them during development. Fallout 4 was originally going to be set in New York City. During an interview with no clip, Emil Pringles, a developer that worked on Fallout 3, Fallout 4 and the piece of shit Fallout 76, said that Boston was not the original setting for Fallout 4. There were many other locations Fallout 4 could have been set in. One of these other locations was New York City. It is written in a design document that he keeps with him in his desk and when he goes to bed with it. The narrator of this video dwells on the subject matter a bit more.
The first thing is for us is figure out where the hell is this game set. And it wasn't Boston originally. And it was really, I grew up in Boston and I thought it would be a great, but I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to push for it. So I'm like, it was set somewhere else. And I still have a design doc in my desk, original design doc. And in that design doc, the one holdover is the character of Nick Valentine was conceived even way back then. He was like the first character they came up with.
Emma's design doc focusing on a New York-based Fallout was one idea that the leads were floating around.
It was never originally New York City, it was just one of the locations Bethesda thought would make a good Fallout setting. Interplay's Fallout Online. Before Bethesda's Fallout 3 release, Interplay Entertainment, Black Isle, and Mashhead Studios were working on a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. The project's name was Project Vault 13, or V13 for short. The project, like all Interplay Entertainment games, had a rocky development cycle, with many people joining and many people leaving during the game's development. The game was ultimately cancelled because of legal issues with Bethesda. You already know where I'm going with this. See, Bethesda's parent company, ZeniMax Studio, announced in 2007 the creation of ZeniMax Online Studios, meaning they can make MMOs of their IPs like Elder Scrolls and of course Fallout, since they bought the rights from Interplay in 2007. They had big future plans for the Fallout franchise, and they decided only they and their companies are allowed to make online games with their IPs. So they sued Interplay, won, and Fallout Project 13 was cancelled in 2012. A shame, because we got Fallout 76 instead. Voltec in Smash Bros. Have you ever felt that life has deeper meaning and that maybe there is more to life than working 9 to 5 times a week? I didn't. Here you can see Voltboy in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. This video is from the Nintendo YouTube channel, so it must be true. Abraham and Monty. Before Fallout New Vegas got its DLCs, notably Dead Money, some NPCs already had dialogue written to correspond to different DLC NPCs. One of these NPCs is Veronica, who has dialogue about Father Elijah after the player finishes the Dead Money DLC. This dialogue was normally hidden and can be viewed unless using console commands or viewing from the game documents. Looking at Veronica's dialogue about Elijah will give you something strange. Elijah's name is changed to Monty and Abraham, two names sharing the same body. The holo message item that you give to Veronica is also changed to an accelerator. This was done to avoid spoiling the Dead Money DLC before the player played it and finished it, or before Dead Money was planned to be released. This is actually a genius way of hiding game spoilers. Dinosaur footprint. In Fallout 1, while exploring the wasteland, it's possible to get a unique random encounter, a giant footprint of a dinosaur. A smooth brain will tell you this is an Easter egg of Godzilla or Jurassic Park. But I know better. Let me dissect the deep lore behind this footprint.
Actually saved us from being canceled the first time. And I'll talk about that in just a second. Our second idea was epic. You started in the modern world, you were thrown back in time, you killed the monkey that would evolve into being humans, you went through space travel, you went to the future that was ruled by dinosaurs, you were then exiled to a fantasy planet where magic took you back to the original timeline that you restored to full and came back to the modern world to save your girlfriend.
Tim sure does have a wild imagination, but my subconscious still believes it's Dinky's a dinosaur. Fallout Tactics 2. Fallout Tactics 2 is a cancelled sequel to the minorly acclaimed Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel. Development started right before the first game was released. The game was cancelled by Interplay due to the first game sales not meeting the sale expectations. It did not get past the concept state. Here you can see concept art of irradiated mutated alligators and alligator people. Fallout Extreme. What would happen if you take Fallout and combine it with Arma? If you say a cancelled third and first person strategy shooter, you would be correct. It was called Fallout Extreme. The game would take place in several areas such as Washington, Canada, and Russia. The main plot consists of a rebel group called the Khaz, who had enough of the Brotherhood annexing the territory in the United States. You play as Abel. As you fight and free more land, the locals swear their loyalty to you. Near the end of the game, you come to China and fight your way to the Chinese Emperor. The game was being developed by 14 Degrees East for the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. However, because of a changing development team, the game did not get past the concept stage and was cancelled on 2000. Information about this game's existence was released in 2010. Dead Money is inspired by The Wizard of Oz. Dead Money has some references to The Wizard of Oz, as does Old World Blues. The three companions you meet are Doug, a mentally ill nightkin who has severe brain and personality problems, can be interpreted as the Scarecrow, who has no brain because of his lack of sanity and decent eating standards. Dean, an egotistical kleptomaniac, can be interpreted as a Tin Man because of his lack of compassion and trust issues. The man threatened to kill you with a bomb first time you met him. And Christine, a mute, can be interpreted as a lion because of her lack of voice, as in lacking the courage to speak. Father Elijah can be interpreted as the wizard, as the old man behind the curtain, only showing a hologram of what he wants people to see. Am I digging too deep here? Yes. Old World Blues has a bare Wizard of Oz reference. You wake up in Big Mountain with your heart, brain and spine gone. The spine being a lack of courage, from the idiom of lacking a spine. Slave suicide bombers in New Vegas. They don't appear in Fallout New Vegas or its DLCs. I researched this and only found mods that have this as a feature. There are slave bomb collars, but nobody used them to kamikaze slaves at anyone. The Institute was inspired by the nursery. In the cancelled Van Buren, the player would have encountered an area called the nursery. From the design docs, we understand that this was a project to build a vault that housed plant life. The project was worked on by Greenway Hydroponics, a company that was created by Derek Greenway, a scientist that worked for Poseidon Energy, and Environmental Protection Agency, a pre-war environment conservation agency. The idea of creating the nursery was, why if humanity survived the war but they had nothing to eat? They would have died from starvation due to a lack of crops. The nursery was meant to be a bastion of hope for rebuilding mankind. It is also run by a super advanced AI called Diana Stone, who was once human. The Institute claims they want to preserve humanity, but all they seem to be doing is building robots. Let's look at the similarities. Both were worked on or have working scientists. Both were originally created to help mankind. And both incorporate highly advanced technology to keep the cogs going. Was the Institute actually inspired by the nursery? I don't think so, but it's a good head scratcher. Elder Scrolls and Fallout are connected. In Fallout 4, if you are part of the Brotherhood or have good relations with them, they will let you aboard their mighty vessel, the Prydwen. In the Biolab section, you can encounter a plant called Experimental Plant. This plant was found next to a river by a scribe. It has the appearance and characteristics of the Nirnroot. They both glow and grow near rivers. Does this mean Elder Scrolls and Fallout are connected? No, you're being schizophrenic again. In a GameStop interview with Pete Hines, who is Vice President of Marketing at Bethesda, he straight up tells you that you need to take your meds. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel God weapons. I'm not quite sure what this is talking about, as this game doesn't have a lot of info about it. And that's a good thing. If it's talking about the secret weapons, there are three: Meat Canyon, Red Rider BB gun, and the Slugger. There are also weapons called Uber weapons from the cancelled sequel. As you can see from these leaked documents, they were meant to be substantially more powerful than your normal weaponry. I hope this is what the author meant, as I do not own this game or wish to play it for myself. If you want to try and find these weapons and happen to own a copy of Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, don't bother, throw it into the garbage and reconcile your life choices. Don't worry, you're doing yourself a favor. Vault-Tec caused the Great War. In the Fallout games, we don't have a definitive answer of who started the Great War, nor do people that live in the post-world care, as they are more interested in staying alive and not die from constant radiation exposure. However, if we put canonical and well-established lore aside and look at the Fallout movie leak document,
more on this later,
we can see that the war was started by Vault-Tec. They were the first to launch the nukes. This triggered a domino effect, and every country that had nukes decided now would be a great time to use them. Why did Vault-Tec do this? Because one of the creators of the Vaults was a lunatic who wanted his prophecy of nuclear annihilation to come to fruition. Is this canon? Well, the movie was never released, nor was the script said to be canon by Bethesda or Interplay.
In Fallout 4, there's a mean son of a bitch by the name of Kellogg who's hired by the Institute to kidnap your son. In the process of doing this, he happens to kill your wife, or your husband if you're into that. Once you wake up from your little nap and you find your dead spouse, you do the only sensible thing that anyone else would do. You gather up your boys, you go confront him in the Walmart parking lot, and you beat his ass. You beat his ass so hard that you can reach into his noggin and pull out a bit of his brain. Now you may be wondering, what the hell am I supposed to do with this thing? Well, your buddy Nick tells you that someone over in Goodneighbor might be able to use that there brain to help you find your son. So you mosey on over to Goodneighbor and make your way into the memory den, and this is where you find Dr. Amari. And can I say, God bless this woman. She's probably getting paid less than minimum wage, was about to take her lunch break, and then these maniacs show up and start asking her all sorts of stupid questions. Anyway, she takes the brain and plugs that shit into Nick's head, and this allows you to walk through his memories from him being a kid all up until you murder his ass. And I hate to say it, but most of what you've seen there isn't important. At all. What is important is that brain you just plugged into Nick is now a part of him, and this shit happened.
Nick.
Hope you got what you were looking for inside my head. I was right. I should have killed you when you were on ice.
So what the hell does this mean? Is Kellogg still alive, just hanging out in Nick's head? The answer is no. Kellogg is dead. Him talking to you in Nick's mouth is just a side effect of his memories sticking around for just a little bit longer than intended. Digging a little bit deeper, apparently there's some cut dialogue options that suggest that Kellogg's augmentations are the same stuff that Nick is made out of, and that's how he was able to decipher the memories for us. Ain't that nifty? What ain't nifty is that this goes nowhere, there's no further mention of it, and everyone just acts like nothing happened. What a f***ing crock of shit!
Fallout 2's original TV town story. During the development of Fallout 2, there were many ideas floating around. One of these ideas was a town created and run by an AI that was based on the 60s. However, like many good things, this never made it into the game. In fact, it was cut from the game very early on. It is, however, mentioned in the official Fallout 2 strategy and secret guide. This area was meant to be the main story of Fallout 2 before we got the blowing up the Enclave oil rig story. This TV town had many advanced technologies that its neighbors desperately wanted. The ending of the story would have involved the AI that created this town going to space. Iron Mountain Enclave Post. In Fallout 2, inside the nuclear power plant in Gecko, the player can find a terminal. The terminal has access to PoseidonNet, giving the player access to the Enclave security station on the oil rig. This also lets you see pre-war American outposts. One of these is Iron Mountain. It is stated to be offline and it is impossible to communicate with them, meaning if there was pre-war or even current Enclave forces there, they are not there anymore. It is most likely a reference to a satirical book disguised as an army report by the publisher Dial Press. Starfield and Fallout are connected. In Fallout New Vegas, the big cheese of New Vegas is Mr. House. He has a plan. His plan is to get as much money as possible from the drunken visitors of Vegas. With enough money, he will be able to produce spaceships. With these, he will be able to send people into orbit and colonize planets. Why am I telling you this? Because I don't have a plan on how to write this script. And this is the only logical connection I could make between Fallout and the upcoming Bethesda title Starfield. All I know comes from a name, and that isn't helping much. My guess is that Starfield takes place in space after it was colonized by Mr. House. Is this true? 100% not, but it's nice to think about. Fallout Shelter Online. Continuing the trend of the Chinese getting some games specifically made for their demographic, we have Fallout Shelter Online. This is a amalgamation of Fallout Shelter and Raid Shadow Legends. You assemble a group and go out into the world fighting, I believe, other players. I think. It has online plattered all over it. This makes sense. A better question would be, why does this exist? Because Chinese game localization rules are stupid. I don't even think this was approved by Bethesda, but what are they gonna do about it? Do they really want to make 2 billion rice farmers into enemies? I don't think so. The Fallout movie. In 1998, Interplay opened its film division and called it Interplay Films. This is a great way to lose money you don't need and will not have any lasting repercussions in the future. The too long didn't read version of this movie is about a 20-something-year-old vault dweller and his expedition to Vault 8 to retrieve a water chip. He and his team would have to survive the hazardous outside world, learning about what really happened before the war, getting a GEC and living happily. I won't go into detail. The movie treatment was released to the public and you can read it. New Vegas and Van Buren shared characters. Fallout New Vegas was developed by Obsidian Entertainment. If you haven't been living under a rock for the past 2 decades, you should know that it was founded by past Black Isle employees. One of them is of course Chris Avallone. With Bethesda gave permission to Obsidian to develop a Fallout spin-off, one thought had crossed their minds. How can we reuse assets from Van Buren to save on resources? Because having your parent company neglect and beat you on a daily basis because of financial issues is known to leave some lasting side effects. Yes, New Vegas has many characters that would have first appeared in Van Buren. Some of these characters are Arcade Gannon, Joshua Graham, who was the Hangman, Alice McLafferty, and the entirety of Caesar's Legion, just to name a few. Fort Abandoned Design Docs. When the Fallout Van Buren design docs were leaked, there were a lot of location docs. The location docs usually consisted with the area's history, quest, and the people you can encounter. However, not everything was released. Design document 13 is missing, so is a design document for Fort Abandoned. It was likely written the same way as the other design docs, but the file is most likely lost, or is hiding in Chris's closet in a secret safe that he dares not to open. There is one design document called VB_Fort Abandoned, but it has nothing to do with Fort Abandoned and more of a quick overview of the game's mechanics. Half of it is written in a language that, till this day, nobody could decipher, but are interpreted as the incoherent ramblings of a madman. Chinese giant robot in Fallout 4. In Fallout 4, you can stumble upon these posters, featuring a robot that from the design looks like it belonged to the Chinese army. Now, we all know the American government in the Fallout world love using their propaganda, but is there some truth to it? No, not really. This might be a tool used to bring fear and hatred towards the Chinese to get more people to join the American army. Chinese also did not have any source of fusion power, the stuff that makes Liberty Prime work. Yes, I know this is from the Fallout Bible and maybe not 100% canon, but this is the best evidence you are gonna get. Todd Howard never played Tactics or Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. Honestly, I would not blame him. When working on Fallout 3, Bethesda, more importantly Todd Howard, played with the idea if Fallout should stay in a top-down RPG game or change it into an FPS that we know it today. In an interview Todd had with PC Gamer that is lost to time, but some of it is still saved on No Mutants Allowed, We can understand that Todd Howard is drunk. He views Fallout Tactics as an RPG and not what it actually is, a tactical strategy game more close to XCOM than Fallout. This raises a question, did Todd even play Fallout Tactics? Or if he did, he sees no difference between it and Fallout 1 and Fallout 2. That's a scary thought. Him not playing Brotherhood of Steel is completely justifiable, and he should be looked at as an example for not even bothering with this stupid game. Project V13 is still in development. In this segment, everybody is a drug user, while Fallout Online, Project V13 was still in development, and its creation could save the world from the 2012 mine apocalypse. I sound like an insane person, but this is true. Some people who worked on the cancelled game decided to start a Kickstarter on a site called Invested. They claim they are working on this game to save us from an apocalypse so massive it did not even happen. Honestly, reading this entire page is funny to me. They also made this informative video.
Details have recently come to light in the wake of tomorrow's end of the Mayan calendar. Many of us may scoff at such predictions, with countless people tempting fate with end-of-the-world parties scheduled for later this evening. But there are those who can't help but feel that there is something up. Something in our bones, in our lizard brains, tell us that this and other past predictions are not just the stuff of late-night fodder. Well, now comes startling proof that apocalyptic predictions are no joke. Take Y2K. That was supposed to be the downfall of civilization, and then nothing. Not even a blip. Right? Wrong. It turns out that it was one massive blip.
High quality. This was made back in 2012 and nothing came out of it. Some sources say they took the money and ran away with it. To a normal person, this might seem like a scam, but from their point of view, they are doing this to save humanity.
Behold his mighty hand!
Have you ever thought, you know what would be a good idea? If Fallout was a tabletop RPG, you know who else thought this would be a good idea? Glutton Creeper Games. Who are they? I do not know. They asked Interplay for permission to use the Fallout IP to create a Fallout tabletop game. But Interplay does what Interplay does best. Fuck up, sell the Fallout license to Bethesda, and cause legal complications. And in 2007, Glutton Creeper Games could no longer make a Fallout tabletop game anymore. Now all they have on them is a semi-finished game. But what if they remove all elements related to Fallout and implement the game with a touch of cheesy 80s movies? You get Exodus. Is it any good? Well, I only play tabletop games with girly Barbie dolls made by the British and thus can't review it in a comparative manner, but if we go to trustable sources, they did not quite like it. Is it canon? No. Bethesda stole the rights to Fallout from Interplay. Interplay was having a hard time back when the 2000s started. No money, no good games. Their empire of making successful and critically acclaimed games was crumbling. Bethesda, on the other hand, were huge. They recently released The Elder Scrolls Oblivion, a massive success that kickstarted Bethesda becoming one of the most recognizable and well-respected developers not just in America but the whole world. But Bethesda had a void to fill. You see, they wanted more, especially Todd. He and the people that work under him love the Fallout franchise, and fearing they'll be lost to time, have coordinated a plan. They will buy the franchise from Interplay. Bethesda gets the IP they desire, and Interplay gets to live just a bit longer. The deal was finished in 2007 and the price was $5.75 million. This action is what we call stealing. It is an absurdly low amount for a franchise as prestigious as Fallout. Interplay had no choice. They did not want to file for bankruptcy. They had to sell it. From Bethesda's point of view, this was an amazing deal. They get all of their older games, which they can sell and don't need to give a share to Interplay. All assets, all lore, everything is theirs. In a short span of 8 years, from 2007 and 2015, Fallout is now worth $45 million. If this is not stealing, I don't know what is. Klingons in Van Buren. The BOMB, or Ballistic Orbital Missile Base, is the final area of Fallout 3 Van Buren. It is a space station that was run by a pre-war US government, similar to the Enclave oil rig from Fallout 2, housing the strongest enemies. You might ask yourself, what random encounters does this nuclear-heavy facility that has a trigger-happy individual might possibly have? If you go to the design document called BOMB 001, we see this. Klingons in my Fallout? It's more likely than you think. This is most likely a joke made by the developers who, as we know, have an unhealthy obsession over Star Trek. Why? Nobody knows. Is this canon? That's the wrong question to be asking. The real question, is Van Buren canonical to begin with? Knights of the Old Republic 2 used Van Buren design documents. This is embarrassing. The subject kept me up at night. All the research I did yielded no results. I have found no connection between Van Buren and Knights of the Old Republic 2. My only evidence is that both were worked on by the same people. I have failed at my job and you are ashamed of me. You may do with my hideous body whatever you wish. Original Van Buren pen and paper files. Chris Avellone, the legendary game designer that worked on Fallout 2 and New Vegas, has an unusual way of designing games. So unusual that he makes entire presentations about it and forces the entire work crew to use them willingly or by force. Because if it isn't Chris's way, it's nobody's way. What are these cards exactly? These are part of the Fallout Van Buren pen and paper game created by Chris to test the rules and the mechanics of the cancelled Fallout 3 Van Buren game. The Pip-boy card worked similar to how experience points work in Fallout 2, and the skill-based cards like First Aid represent how many times the player can use it per session. Where can you find this magnificent pen and paper game? Chris has them and he is very reluctant to share them. Van Buren is in development. Have you heard of An Exile? Of course you did. They made the excellent Wasteland 2 and Wasteland 3. The company was founded by Brian Fargo, the original founder of Interplay, who, upon seeing that his first child was having self-destructive tendencies, jumped ship, told them to fuck off and created a new company. Why am I telling you this? I asked for the 50th time since you started this stupid video. Because he trademarked the Van Buren codename. That's right, the name now belongs to Fargo and he can do with it amazing things. From this article from Eurogamer, he's saying he has plans for it. When will his plans manifest? 10 years? 20, maybe 30, only time will tell. But rest assured, your grandkids will be able to play Fallout 3 as it was meant to be. Christ Avellone purposefully broke the peaceful Deathclaw ending in Fallout 2 to remove them from the setting. In Fallout 2, when the player character finally reaches Vault 13, he will find the entire vault is infested with Deathclaws. But these Deathclaws are different. They are intelligent, engineered by the Enclave to be more obedient. They kidnapped and killed many Vault 13 residents. All this slaughter made the Deathclaws doubt their masters, and so they decided to abandon them and set in Vault 13 as their new home. One of these Deathclaws, named Gores, is even a companion. He comes with you. If the player kills Dr. Sherber and fixes the vault computers, he saves them from being massacred or going extinct. They live happy and peaceful lives. And you can rest easy knowing that the ending slideshow will have a good ending for the Deathclaws. Except this never happens. Due to a bug, the good ending never plays. It's either the genocide ending or no ending at all. Let's talk about Chris Avellone again. I mentioned Chris not liking animals. Here this manifests. If you open the Fallout Bible, you can read this quote by Chris himself, that they all died and not only the Deathclaws but any other talking animal is dead. You know this is Chris because he is the author of the Fallout Bible and all questions asked are towards him. Because of this bug, this cannot be disputed. The Deathclaw's fate is either unknown or known, and they all are 6 feet under. Did Chris cause this bug, or was it a mistake by the game developers? No one knows, but all we know that this benefits Chris in his crusades against all animals. First Battle of Hoover Dam was originally lost due to an orgy. We finally reached the most head-scratching and deepest lore subject in this entire iceberg. Did the Legion lose the first Battle of Hoover Dam because the soldiers had an orgy? For years I pondered this question, and finally my search led me to this video. In this video, Chris rambles about how his pen and paper design is the second coming of Christ. But that is not why we are here, not even close. Exactly at the video 31-minute mark, stop the video and zoom in. Closer. Closer! No, not that close. Here. Squint your eyes and you can just barely see it. The NCR attacked the Legion when the Legion was participating in a Saturnalia style orgy. Did we finally reach it? Nirvana, I never thought I would see this day. A singularity point so dense you can add 10 layers of lore. But was it canon? So ends my deranged quest to figure out this iceberg. I have learned many things, but the one thing I value more than knowledge is the friends I made along the way. And you, the viewer who had to suffer my accent for an undisclosed amount of time, I say thank you, hope you have a good day, and don't let Chris catch you out at night.